As we look out to July and August, we are highlighting modern spiritual authors and thinkers that are helping us to both make sense of our day and age and figure out how it is that we are living and working and moving and having our being together. Today we look at Jeff Chu, who is a writer, reporter, and editor. He and his husband Tristan live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And he was a fashion journalist in London and New York, running in fast circles. But at one point, he felt what he would describe as sad. In the fashion world, he felt far from his first impulses for journalism. And he hit a crossroads, as we often do at different points in our mid-journey. And he got to the point where he needed to take another path. And he said that this was for the sake of his soul. He went back to school, this time seminary, and some time at Princeton Seminary, where the farmery, where Amy has spent time. And he wrote a 2025 book that was hatched in that setting called Good Soil, The Education of an Accidental Farmhand. His self-discovery reminds us to keep following God's next calling for our lives. And we have 3 video clips today that come from an interview, a podcast from Kate Bowler. Now, Kate Bowler is a thinker and a writer and a professor, and she has a wonderful podcast called Everything Happens that I hope that you'll check out. She is longtime friends with Jeff, and she has many books to her own credit. You'll get her candor and humor if you hear the titles. Listen closely. Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved. No Cure for Being Human and Other Truths I Need to Hear. The Lives We Actually Have, and Have a Beautiful, Terrible Day. She brings so much deep wisdom as a cancer overcomer, and the ways that she engages with people about grief and the messiness of life is truly something to behold. So we have these 3 clips today, and the first one in this interview with Kate, she invites Jeff to share about his family origins. Let's take a listen.
I never wanted to be in the family business. My grandfather was a preacher. My uncle still is. He also taught theology at a university in Hong Kong. I have another uncle who is a Baptist preacher in Australia. My grandmother was a primary school Bible teacher. This is the family business. There's not a lot of room in that Baptist family business for a gay guy. Yeah. I didn't think there was room in the church for me for a long time. So that's a part of my story too, that real narrative of unbelonging, because people tell you that there's an integral part of yourself that doesn't fit. So part of my story is coming back to God, or being told that maybe I had never left God's arms in the first place. You can say that, but it's a different thing than believing it. And I think the farm is where I began, in the soil, with the sunflowers, cursing the hidden groundhog that kept digging holes. I found my place again, a little bit, just a little bit.
Can you hear it, that sense of unbelonging? Have some of us at some point felt on our journey that we didn't quite fit, that some aspect of us would have to be left at the door in order to show up into a space? And so as Jeff was figuring some of these things out, he also talked with Kate about what it was to be in ongoing relationship with his parents, those who would not accept his husband, Tristan. He describes a moment when at his seminary graduation, his parents unexpectedly show up, Tristan on one side of the congregation and them on another, and they refuse to meet him. But Tristan, out of the love and depth of his heart in that moment for his beloved Jeff, encouraged him to go and speak with his parents. And although they don't have a relationship, it's somehow that Jeff is able to maintain a relationship, partly because the one he loves most, Tristan, has helped to make a space for that. And Jeff says that's not the decision that everyone can make, and nor the most healthy for everyone. But they've come to a moment where they can hold hard things together, and there's space for Jeff, for both. As he goes into more description, he talks about the theology of the compost. So continually what he was learning about God as he got into the dirt. And our second clip tells a little bit about that as they engage, trying to consider how it is that God continues to use, as Amy so beautifully said, all of the soil that can healthily be germinated and helps us to let go of the rest. Let's hear some more from Jeff.
As I've thought about the compost pile and its lessons, I've realized we need to stare death in the face. We need to acknowledge our losses. There's an invitation in that to confront how we live, to be grateful for what we do have, and to lament what we're not doing well. The other part of it is there are no guarantees with the compost pile. We're invited to participate, but we can screw things up too. Right? We can have a hand in making good soil, but we can get the balance wrong. We can not be attentive enough. And there's a cost to that as well. So I have a very realist take on the compost pile. It's definitely not like a glossy postcard picture.
This really struck home for me when I was thinking about the things that I can do in my life. Sometimes I screw up creating the soil. Sometimes we do that in larger community, and we have laments and griefs as we look to our landscape, both here and across our nation, for ways in which the pH balance isn't being kept in check, or the ways in which the soil isn't being enriched. And what is our part to play in that ongoing process? We know that a part of it is to tend to ourselves, to do the things that we can in relationship with others and finding community of which we feel like we can be a part of that good pH, right? But there are no guarantees. You heard him talk a little bit about that grief. Some of that's the grief he holds in relation to his parents for what they expected of him, and what he, as he looks out, grieves as what will not be, while at the same time cultivating what is. Perhaps there are relationships like that for you. Not the perfect relationships, but we show up to them the best ways that we can. And by holding together that community, we continue to hold out hope that God can make good soil. In this final clip, I want us to be looking as part of our community conversation for words that resonate with you. Because I think there's a way that as we stir together and are in conversation with the passing of the mics, we can speak into some of the principles and offerings he makes for taking this theology forward. You'll hear him talk about small and ordinary graces that create a sense of belonging. And sometimes we are always reaching and looking for the big revolution, and not realizing that by these small and intentional acts over and over again, that we are part of the deep part of that sustained and rooted revolution that's able to take shape. Let's listen to this last clip. It's going to end with a phrase and a question about hero story. So be thinking about what that means in the context of what Jeff says, and to think about what that means as we have conversation. Let's hear this third clip before we would engage in conversation together.
I love small and ordinary graces. One of the gifts you give me is the occasional text message that has nothing to do with anything, but reminds me that I'm alive and I get to be your friend. I think it's the small and ordinary graces that create belonging for each other.
Yeah.
And instead of building community, we spend so much time and energy trying to optimize other things and dream big and flail in search of revolution. And I think it's the small and ordinary acts of love that are going to that we need to build the community that are going to make the world better.
Yeah.
It's together. It's not one person striking out on their own and being the hero.
Yes.
I think the hero story is a false story.
Let's think about that for a moment in some prayerful thought before we would pass the mics this morning. I hear two things in this and would love to hear more in our conversation. One is that sometimes we carry so much on our shoulders and thinks we have to be the one to go out and strike and to make the big difference. The other is thinking about what the role of Jesus is in all of this, because it is often him working in strident love amongst the least and the last in the places that are uncertain, showing acts of healing and kindness to so many. We look to him as a hero, but he's always working in deep collaboration with others. How do we save ourselves from this narrative that we have to be the hero, knowing that we're working together mightily to make a difference as we are? Small and ordinary graces, can they truly make a difference for the world in which we find ourselves?